£50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing, just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 9 p.m. and this is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong. Ben is taking a well-earned holiday, but don't worry, he's back as usual from next week. But you've got nothing to worry about though, you'll still get upfront and hard-hitting opinions while I'm in the hot seat. Nothing is off limits. Tonight on the show, return is the Prime Minister plotting to overturn Brexit through the back door with his Ramona friends in Europe. And Bev Turner is joining us all the way from Washington, D.C. as she gives us the inside scoop on Trump's impending inauguration. Plus, as over 70 people have been arrested at a pro-Palestine march in London today, we're asking, why the hell are these marches still happening even after a ceasefire deal has been done? Also, Reform UK's party chairman is joining us live from Washington, D.C. as well. I'll be asking him if Nigel and Elon have kissed and made up. And is it all falling apart for American hustlers, Harry and Meghan? A major publication that used to have their backs has now gone on the turn. I've got royal expert and biographer Ingrid Stewart joining me and all the latest on that. Plus, weren't you promised an end to the train strike misery? Well, brace yourselves for another year of train strikes as union bosses look set to reject a 2.8% public sector pay rise. Also, I'll be joined by my superstar panel, journalist and comms advisor Linda Jubilee, journalist and writer Peter Lloyd, and author and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Also, what on earth do you think this might be?
Hurry, get a picture! Wait, get a picture! Ready?
Good, it's about to fall on top of us.
See it! Guys, oh my gosh! What is this? We get a
Britain, never. The EU can get stuffed. Next.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. Over a dozen people have been injured in a ski lift accident in Spain. Astun ski resort said around 15 people were injured, 3 of them seriously. The regional government previously said today that at least 30 people had been injured, 9 of them very seriously. State TV channel TVE reported around 80 people remained trapped for some time on that chairlift. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says he was shocked by the news of the incident. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says they cannot move forward with the ceasefire deal until, quote, we receive the list of hostages to be released. In a speech this evening, Benjamin Netanyahu said this war has changed the face of the Middle East, whilst also suggesting the campaign is not yet over. It comes after the Israeli military earlier said it was preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity, ahead of the ceasefire deal expected to take effect tomorrow. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages are to be freed tomorrow, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be amongst the first 30 to leave. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid. More than 70 pro-Palestinian protesters have been arrested in Trafalgar Square today on suspicion of breaching protest conditions after demonstrators broke through a police line as they marched from a rally in Whitehall. Thousands of protesters met a line of police officers and eventually broke through, with those who made it to the square later finding themselves being held in one corner. The Metropolitan Police warned the group to disperse or face arrest, later announcing that 20 to 30 people had breached conditions and were arrested. Those arrests are for public order offences and for, of course, breaching those conditions put in place by police. Thousands of people are calling on the government to stop arming Israel. Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay, according to The Telegraph. Fears over Chinese influence if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius are fueling the delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island. Thousands of people marched from 3 separate points around Washington, D.C. today ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. The marches were being led by several national activist groups, including women's rights groups. The 47th president's inauguration will be the first to be held indoors since Ronald Reagan's in 1985 due to the cold weather. And Trump is shortly due to take off from Florida, and he will travel to Washington, D.C. in the next few moments. We'll bring you those live pictures as soon as we get them. Temperatures are expected to drop there to minus 14 degrees Celsius. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Brexit nemesis, top EU bureaucrat, and now Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Well, he's been flirting with Keir Starmer, who is also on what feels like his 200th trip abroad since becoming Prime Minister. Some might assume he's running away from diabolical approval ratings, but I couldn't possibly comment. Anyway, as the PM finished his flyby tour of Poland, all designed to reset relations between the EU and the UK, Ramona besties Keir Starmer and Donald Tusk, who both campaigned vigorously against Brexit for a second referendum, well, they held a cosy little press conference together. But disturbingly, during their press conference, Tusk seemed to have had his Martin Luther King moment. Yes, Donald Tusk has a dream of Britain. Some of you might ask, well, what is Britain? Well, Britain is the ultimate betrayal and undermining of the British democracy. It's return of Britain to the dying European project through the back door. Well, the Prime Minister's been out with his begging bowl to our EU neighbours as his Chancellor's budgets crashed whatever was left of our economy after the Tories bottled it in the last government. And as part of our surrender to the EU, Brussels is expected to demand freedom of movement be re-established for young people, an alignment with EU laws, and continued rights for EU nations to fish in British waters well past 2026. No, no, and no. If this goes ahead, it will be the ultimate treachery of the largest exercise in British democratic history. The government, of course, would argue that closer ties with the EU would be tearing down unnecessary barriers to trade and prevent unnecessary border checks to help tackle the cost of food crisis. But let's get real. What actually would we get out of this? What great innovations are coming out of the EU? Well, I've got some here with me, actually. Shall we have a little look? First of all, what's that? That is your new paper straws. That's another EU regulation there. No more plastic straws, which are far superior. And everyone's favourite. Come on. This is the peak of EU innovation. Why don't we take a look at what's going on in America? Yeah, could the difference be any starker? Why on earth would we be cozying up to the dying EU economy when we could be partnering with the most pro-UK administration in generations and literally tie rocket boosters to our economy? Well, anyway, let's get the thoughts of my superstar panel. Joining me this evening is journalist and comms advisor Linda Jubilee, journalist and writer Peter Lloyd, author and academic Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. Lisa, look, surely with all this investment flooding into America, we should be tying our boat to them, not the EU.
Well, I mean, personally, I think we should be friendly with both. You know, there's no, you know, I think this was the misnomer about Brexit, that somehow when we left the EU we were not friends with the Europeans anymore, and you know we didn't want a relationship. That wasn't true. That's not actually what we voted for. What we voted for to leave Europe was so we could have more self-determination, not because we disliked Europeans. And I think what has been built around Brexit is somehow some animosity. And I think some of that has come from Macron, from Merkel at the time. Yeah. And actually, the British people have never had any animosity towards Europeans.
No, it's just the European Union, right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, I have...
But would you not say that realigning with them and saying, you know, we're going to reintroduce freedom of movement for young people, we're going to align with the EU... Is that not a betrayal, Lisa?
No, I mean, I actually do think that... I don't mind the sort of freedom of movement for young people, actually. I agree with that. I think that's a good thing. I work at a university. You know, it's a good thing for young people to move around. And can we just say, before we go on, the Polish, the Polish who came here in the early 2000s are that sick of us and fed up of how rubbish we are. They're actually going back.
Can we go with them? He's doing better, right? I mean, they're set to overtake us, aren't they?
I mean, I live in Nottinghamshire, and on my border is a place called Shirebrook. Yeah. And in the early 2000s, thousands of Polish migrants came over to work in the worst warehouses. And actually, they're going home because they've had it. I know Polish families, and they've said to me they're going home, and some of their wives and husbands are English, and they're going with them.
Well, Peter, is it not a good point? Like, surely this... I mean, I don't necessarily agree with Lisa on this. I think having more freedom of movement, again, is exactly what British people didn't like about the EU in the first place. They wanted to stop immigrants coming into the country and have control of our borders. That's just reneging on Brexit, isn't it?
It is, but, you know, it was always inevitable. Starmer was a die-hard fan of the EU and was clearly always unhappy with the fact that the referendum went the way it did. He's clearly tinkering in the background. He would never do it conspicuously, I don't think. I think he would never be explicitly pro-EU. But I think he's definitely working on things in the background. And, you know, you can see from this press conference, I mean, it was so nauseating. I just think you can see what's really happening behind the scenes.
It's undemocratic.
And yet hasn't Poland closed its borders to parts of the world as well. They're very clear about who can and come into Poland. So I don't think Tusk should be telling us anything.
Well, so this is the point, right? So he's now got this resetting of relationship with the European Union.
What does that mean?
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you then. What does that mean to the average British person?
What I can't get over here is this use of marketing speak to get us around certain situations. Now, what does it mean, reset? It doesn't mean anything at all. What does return mean? It's like an advertising slogan. And politicians in this country and politicians internationally have got to get out of the habit of using this marketing speak to substitute from their lack of grip of a situation and their lack of solutions. It just doesn't work to have these flashy phrases all the time.
Well, we've seen the Chagos Islands. This is another negotiation the British government are doing.
Yeah, there's another one.
I think the British public are looking at that negotiation and saying, this seems like a bit of a disaster. We've actually handed it over to the Trump administration. Can we trust the government?
But you know what
Lisa, you're taking the words out of my mouth. You know what
I know what most of the country. I mean, you know, like I said, I come on this show and I come from the sort of red wall areas, and I know what people are thinking up there and what they're talking about. And most people can't wait for Trump to come in and perhaps sort the world out, which is what a crazy place we're in.
That's right.
Where people believe that Donald Trump might be able to come in and some of this sort of mad stuff that's been happening, he might sort it out.
Peter, is Chagos just the complete? Is this a sign of how we're going to deal with the EU?
I think so, yeah. It's going to be a nightmare. I think we're going to have right from Donald Tusk to Donald Trump, we're going to have him come in and sort everything out.
How is Donald Tusk even allowed to intervene in the goings-on in this country? At the end of the day, can I just say as well, if Keir Starmer says, even behind closed doors, I think we should be back inside the EU, haven't we got to have the little matter of a referendum?
No.
Isn't that how we did it the first time, so that we were democratic? So we got an answer. I mean, I will tell you, I was a Remainer, but we voted to leave, so I've gotten alongside it, and we have left. And we have to stick with making that work, because that was what the decision of a referendum was.
What do you think would happen, though, if Starmer sort of says, you know, I'm into this, what is it, remaining?
Returning. You're not going to get...
Returning.
That's obviously a marketing slogan.
Returning. No, it's not working for me. I'm not getting it. So what if Starmer says, I think we should return? He's on minus 39.
I mean, it would be the final nail in his coffin.
Approval rate is through the floor.
It's minus 30. He's got minus 39 approval. Minus 39. Apparently, it's the worst approval record we've ever had in any Prime Minister.
Well,
perhaps he's just going... Perhaps he's just gone, I'll just see how far I can go.
But also, how would you cope with it all? You've got the grooming gang scandal, which is, you know, profoundly worrying on a number of levels for this country. You've got your Chancellor of the Exchequer teetering on the edge of self-destruction.
You've got David Lammy. David Lammy.
You know, some would argue... Right,
Don't mention David Lammy.
But I mean, look, some would argue that this is good for Britain. We have to have some sort of economic boost to the economy because, as I was saying, my monologue, it's in tatters, and actually this would be the quickest way to get that boost. So that's what some people would argue.
I'm with you. I think free movement of people, that's OK. My eldest boy got a master's at University of Constance in Germany. He would like to see free movement of people. His age group wants to see free movement of people. Get that sorted, get it done, and push on.
Peter, on that point of freedom of movement for young people, surely if we give it to them and say, right, by the time you're 30, that's gone, that's just setting up the next generation to hate the idea of Brexit, is it not?
Right, exactly. And of course, you know, we already have lots of movement within Europe, and we can't
travel to Europe.
We can't control our own borders.
People seem to think we can't travel to Europe.
But I think this is the problem with this debate, isn't it? The debate is set that there is no free movement, there is no relationship with Europe, we don't do business, but none of that is true. None of that is true. Europeans are moving all around Europe, including the British. We're moving all around Europe. We do business with Europe, and if we are in such a situation where we've got to go to Donald Tusk in Poland with a begging bowl, then, you know, let's just switch the lights off and go home.
Play devil's advocate again. You know, I saw that press article about the 100% tax on British homes in Spain.
Yes.
Surely, if we did things like we joined the EU, that would not happen, you can imagine, because we'd have that freedom of movement and travel and living. You know, there's got to be some upside here. I mean, and Labour have also come out and said that they don't want to reverse Brexit. I mean, whether you believe that or not, it's completely up to you. But there's got to be some upside to this renegotiation with the EU, this reset, as they're calling it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to, first of all, know, I'd like a definition of what a reset is.
Oh, so would I.
That's the thing. That's the key to it.
We had one from the World Economic Forum, didn't we? The Great Reset, maybe something like that. I don't know. God. Delay nothing and be happy.
Yeah, but the World Economic Forum, I've been to that in Davos, is a talk fest. It is not concentrating on what you actually have to do. It's just talking around the subjects. I mean, it's very interesting. I found it completely fascinating. And you've got world leaders and heads of corporate, you know, multinationals, all the rest of it. But they're not making any real decisions there.
No, I mean, I once planted a tree, this is true, with Emmanuel Macron. I know this is true, I did. I was invited him to the EU to plant a tree with Emmanuel Macron to end poverty.
Did it work?
So
Did it work? By the way.
That is exactly what I mean.
Have you ended poverty with that tree yet?
I believe we did not.
Was it a money? Was it a money tree? Is that what it is? Yeah.
The magic money tree.
We planted a tree.
You see, we're laughing now, but the danger is it's like the grooming gang scandal, and we're approaching that in the same way. What is a 3-month audit when it's at home?
Well, that's true.
Yeah. What is a 3-month audit?
But I also just want to focus on this smashing the gangs thing that Labour is obviously focused on. Surely, if we got closer with the EU, that's another thing that would help smash the gangs. Because at the moment, I think 007's running around somewhere trying to do it by himself.
We already have that relationship with France, don't we? We've already got that relationship with France and Germany.
And we've given France a ton of money.
We have.
You know, there's also, you know, and Germany, you know, is also there's no European country that is coming, that is actually doing anything, you know, nothing positive is coming through the amount of migration that's coming through Europe. Every European country wants to stop that.
Yeah.
So, you know, the idea that somehow Europe is this great liberal place for all the liberals, it's actually wrong. That's not right.
Yeah.
Every European country now has got migration at the top.
Yeah, OK, well, look, that's all we've got time for this part half of the show, but you guys are going to be back with us very soon. So, but change of tune. It's now time for our biggest Great British giveaway. This is your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could all be yours. Here's all the details you need to win that whopping 50k cash.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck with that, guys. But up next, our head-to-head. Over 70 arrested at a pro-Palestine march in London this afternoon. Peter Bleskley and Fahima Mohammed will battle it out as I ask, should it have gone ahead in the first place? This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
According to a report from the RAC, many drivers see speed limits as a target rather than anything else. More than 50% of us think it's acceptable to break the speed limit.
So this morning we're asking, is it time to increase
the motorway speed limit.
Let's talk to automotive journalists Danny Kelly and Steve Fowler. Gents, what a pleasure to speak to you both in one go.
I think we should join many countries in the European Union that have 130 kilometres speed limit, which is around about 81 miles an hour. I drive to London on a weekly basis, and I think the roads are capable of handling higher speeds. I think unofficially the speed limit, without getting pulled over by the local police at the time, is probably around about 78, 80 miles an hour. If a Bobby's on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, he wants you to overtake him. He wants the free-flowing of that motorway to continue.
So should we change 70 miles an hour? You know, if people are going 80 miles an hour, just stick to 70 miles an hour as a limit. Yes, you know, it's funny when you're driving along the motorway and there's a police car going at 70 and nobody wants to overtake. But if the average is 80, just leave it at 70.
All the gantries now are fitted with the modern signage where they can change the limit at will. We all know that. It's hard to get up to 70 half the time. So, actually, we could apply those rules, couldn't we, at 80 or even 90 miles an hour and say, well, if the weather's bad, let's reduce it. If the fog's bad, let's reduce it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I hate to use this phrase, smart motorways, but they're the ones where you have the adjustable limits. They don't cover all of the motorway network, relatively small amount of the motorway network. It is a limit. You know, it's not a target, as I keep saying to my kids. God, they're bored of me saying that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Friends of Salman
Welcome
Rushdie.
back. This is Ben Leo tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News. It's time now for our head-to-head. A mass rally of support of Palestine drew thousands of protesters to central London this afternoon, despite the fact a Gaza ceasefire is expected to be observed from tomorrow morning. The Met Police confirmed more than 1,100 officers were deployed to the capital as over 70 people were arrested as signs apparently praising Hamas and displaying swastikas were spotted. Wow. Protesters initially planned to march on the BBC's broadcasting house, but this was blocked as it was close proximity to a synagogue, which was deemed a security risk. So I'm asking, should today's march have gone ahead in the first place? Joining me now, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley and broadcaster and neurodiversity coach Fahima Mahmood. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Guys, why should the public keep paying for police time when a foreign war has nothing to do with us? Peter, surely this is draining police resources.
It very much is, and out of that more than 1,000 police officers deployed this afternoon, many of those will have been drawn away from policing their local communities, neighbourhoods, boroughs, investigating crime, preventing crime and serving victims. But they're dragged away to central London to police a mob who gathered today largely with criminal intent at the front of their minds. We've seen a whole raft of offences committed today, from assaulting emergency workers, police officers being spat at, an Israeli flag having a swastika attached to it and displayed with it, many other appalling, revolting crimes by people who support terrorist organisations and want to commit genocide on the entire Jewish faith. It's about time these protests were stopped. I commend the Met Police for their robust, if somewhat overdue, attitude today, And believe you me, there are many more arrests to come.
Fahima, this is a great point from Peter. Look, we've seen 70 arrests. If this was a large-scale football match, this would lead every news bulletin. Why are we so tolerant of these protests, and why should they continue?
Well, we're not tolerant of it. And today...
I think we are. I think we're very tolerant of it. We've been having them for almost a year.
Yes, and that includes, as Peter Beskley has described, the group being a mob. While today there were 13 Holocaust survivors and survivor descendants who have written an open letter opposing the ban to the national demonstration taking place outside the BBC today. And statistics show that close to 1,000 Jews signed that open letter opposing restrictions in the pro-Palestinian protests. And the letter was organised by the Jewish community, including prominent academics, lawyers, activists, highlighting their opposition to the framing of pro-Palestinian marches as threatening through to the Jewish communities. And they actually are only there in solidarity for the actual massacres of children that since the ceasefire was announced on Wednesday, over 130 people were actually killed up till today for the last 3 or 4 days, when it was just mainly women and children. Why are people not understanding that? That is not a Hamas supporter. We're not supporting terrorists. There are not mobs.
Let's talk about the Jewish community for a second, because you've pointed to a small minority of them who may have signed this letter. But, you know, anti-Semitism has gone up thousands of % since these protests started. So you can understand why perhaps there was a blockage of this outside and near a synagogue. Can you not sympathise with that?
Absolutely. I don't think any religious group should be targeted or should be threatened in any way. And those people should be arrested if that was what their intent was. And there is always going to be disruption and an isolated case where that happens. And the amount of people arrested, if they were outside the jurisdiction of how people should protest peacefully and calmly accordance with the UK law, then that is absolutely okay. But it should not be deemed as everybody as being mobs or also Hamas supporters. Because if anything, there's the ministers of the Netanyahu administration who has actually accused Netanyahu's government and him for actually promoting and supporting Hamas in the first place, for them to be here.
Look, Peter, I want to bring you back in here. Suella Braverman's described these marches as hate marches before. Do you think that's a fair description of them to this day?
Unlike my co-debater this evening, I will stick to the matter in hand, which is whether these protests should take place or not. They have gone on now for almost 15 months. In the early days, the Met Police appallingly had a policy of appeasing so many on these protests. And when you appease people, you empower them. And we've seen the behaviour of the thugs attending this march just get worse and worse and worse, culminating today in 77 arrests for many, many offences, including assaults and one for sexual assault. And the behaviour is getting worse. It is time now to ban these marches. Their point has been made. The criminality is increasing. A ceasefire should come in place tomorrow. Enough is enough.
Fahima, look, I mean, Peter's got a good point. Like, these protests have been going on for a very, very long time. Surely the point has been made. The ceasefire is done. Are the pro-Palestine marches just going to become as much of a nuisance as Just Stop Oil? Because, you know, we're blocking roads, we're costing the taxpayer thousands of pounds, we're taking the police away from solving actual crimes, and we're having to arrest and lock up potentially 70 people or so. Surely you can see there's going to be a disconnect here between the vast majority of the British public who go, we get what you have to say, but now it's time to stop.
It's not going to stop because this is against humanitarian law and international law.
But what's that got to do with Britain?
Because they are also being deemed as complicit in also supporting this. So at the end of the day, it is definitely something indirect. You know, there's, you know, sort of people that are also analysts that are saying that there are drones, there are weapons, there are lots of, you know, money also being given by the support of the British government. So that's why there is a direct correlation to this. If you're complaining about, you know, what's been taken away from the British citizens, which they are owed to have, whether it's winter fuel and amounts, but then they are giving away in foreign sort of, you know, aid and things like that to Israel. So at the end of the day, we need to obviously take that on board. And there are, you know, the British values and the British people have 70% of them do actually go against the war in Palestine. So that's the YouGov statistics. So they are definitely concerned about the fact that the West proclaimed to be, these humanitarian, and the West having non-barbaric and authoritarian.
The government have called for a ceasefire. We've had the David Lammy calling for a ceasefire. We have the Prime Minister calling for a ceasefire.
Netanyahu and your
But Netanyahu's not our Prime Minister. I mean, look, anyway, Peter, just over to you quickly.
He's not called for a permanent ceasefire.
Yes.
Just over to you, Peter. Peter, listen, I want to ask you, is this showing community divides in Britain growing ever worse? And obviously, Fahim is saying these protests aren't going to stop. Can you see this getting to a boiling point in Britain? Are British people going to have enough of this stuff? We've already had the Just Stop Oil protests plaguing us for 24 months.
Yeah, and I sincerely hope now that our judiciary wake up and hand down suitable punishments to the people arrested today, if and when they're convicted, like they have been doing recently with Just Stop Oil. We need stiff, deterrent jail terms to stop these people from bringing their thuggery to central London, affecting the economy, making London virtually uninhabitable for law-abiding shoppers, tourists, theatre-goers and the such like. The Met Police can ban these protests. They do have the power. Now is the time to do exactly that.
OK, final word to you, Fahima. If you had one thing to say to the British government in a sentence, what would you implore them to do?
Stop basically supporting a genocide, which is being proclaimed by even Jewish figures and the actual historian Amos Goldberg, the chair of the Holocaust studies at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, that says what's happening in Gaza at this moment is a genocide because Gaza is not in existence anymore. And these are Jewish voices. Don't listen to me because I'm a Muslim. Obviously, it doesn't matter. Listen to the Jewish voices themselves, minority or not.
OK, sorry, Fahima, I have to wrap it up there. But Peter, Fahima, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Fiery stuff, very fiery stuff. OK, coming up next, we are going stateside. Big change of tune here. I'll be speaking to Reform UK Chairman Zia Youssef. He's in Washington, D.C. ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday. This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Last-minute preparations are taking place in Washington ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony on Monday, estimated to be attended by 200,000 and more people. That's before being sworn in as the 47th president, and the 45th, by the way, of the United States. These are live new pictures coming in just moments ago. Mr. Trump will hold a MAGA victory rally tomorrow, where Elon Musk is also due to speak. Donald Trump getting into a plane here, yet you can see him getting aboard, going from Florida to DC. But anyway, listen, we've got a big interview coming up with Zia Yusuf. Let's cross now to Washington, DC. Zia, can you hear me over there?
I can.
Fantastic stuff. It's great to have you tonight, Zia. Thanks for taking the time out. I'm sure you've got a very busy schedule. I mean, I think the first thing we want to know, Elon and Nigel are in the same place, they're in the same city. Have they made up yet?
Well, look, like all relationships, things go up and down. I've no doubt that Mr. Musk and obviously my friend and the leader of Reform, Nigel Farage, will continue that relationship. The most important thing to remember is that Nigel Farage being out here is being treated as if he already was the Prime Minister by the incoming administrations. Everybody wants to talk to him, everybody wants to embrace him. And the most important man, of course, in the United States and the world now is, of course, President Donald Trump, who Nigel Farage has an incredible friendship and relationship with, and that's going to continue.
So do you think Nigel's going to be making any speeches tomorrow? I know you had that fantastic party. I'd love to press you on that in just a second, Zia. But is Donald Trump preparing anything special for Nigel while he's out there? Do you think you're going to get a big shout out for Reform, perhaps?
Well, you've already seen that has happened before. One thing I will tell you, obviously travelling with Nigel, being out here in Washington, D.C., is that Nigel really does have almost the entire incoming administration on speed dial. Everybody wants to talk to him. He's already incredibly influential with this president's new administration. And I just want to give your viewers a little insight to an event that I attended earlier with Pete Hegseth, who's of course, the incoming Defense Secretary for the United States of America. He walked on stage with all of the incredible presence that he has, and he said, while war will always be the very last resort, under his leadership, under instructions from President Trump, when the United States military does have to fight, it will be imbued with the warrior spirit. He used that phrase many times, and he said that when the United States fights wars, it will fight to win. The confidence was something to behold, the steely determination, and most of all, the optimism was incredible. It really does feel like it is morning again in America. The United States is once again standing tall. It's about time the United Kingdom did the same.
Absolutely agree with you there, Zia. I think the whole country may feel that way too. We seem a bit lost at the moment. So, and your big party last night, of course, exclusive party. I hear Peter Mandelson may have tried to get in but wasn't let in. I don't know. That's a little rumour flying around. But Nick Candy has allegedly pledged $10 million to Reform. Is that a sign of more to come? And how has the attempt to get more investors in Reform going out in the States?
There's a lot of enthusiasm amongst donors. Obviously, Nick Candy's a phenomenally successful businessman and entrepreneur in his own right. I can tell you he's having incredible conversations with lots of people who are eligible to donate in the United Kingdom. But let's not forget that Reform UK is adding an extraordinary number of members, and still the vast majority of our costs as a party, as we go on this incredible journey together, are being met by our grassroots supporters, and we shouldn't forget that.
Absolutely. Well, look, just a slight tangent to British politics. The Times are reporting that the Tories are planning to go after voters than after you, Reform. Now, obviously, there's been some, let's say, strained relations between Kemi and Nigel, to put it lightly. Is that a softening between the two parties? Can you see maybe now there's a little bit of a relationship forming? The polls are looking like you two could be on a joint 50% if the election happened tomorrow. Would you need to do a deal?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. You know, reform needs a pact with the Conservative Party in the same way that Netflix needed a pact with Blockbuster Video. 7 months ago, Reform was at 14%. We won 14% of the vote share in the general election, and thanks to the incredible British people and all of our supporters and members across the country, we're now polling consistently at 25%. I think the Tories are going extinct. One data point to prove this is that their support amongst 18 to 25-year-olds, where Nigel Farage is at 1 in 5, we're polling at 20%. The Tories are down in the low single-digit percentages. They virtually have no support in the United Kingdom below 30 years old. The Tories are going extinct. The only question is how quickly.
Would you see an opportunity for, votes for younger people coming up, Zia? Because, you've got that massive swell of support. I think you're the most popular party among under 18s. Would you be supportive of young people getting the vote when the numbers look that good for you?
That's not our current view. And listen, if our view on that sort of thing at Reform, we're a principles-based party. It's not going to be based on cold electoral calculus. That's exactly the sort of thing Labour did. Of course, remember, they said in their manifesto they were going to give votes to 16-year-olds, and then what happened? As soon as it became very clear how much support Reform had, they've obviously dillied and dallied about that. Look, we love our young supporters everywhere we go across the country. Nigel he gets absolutely mobbed by young men, young women who are really, really optimistic about the future and see in Reform a pathway for a much fairer economy. Look, the other thing, I just said the Tories have almost no support under 30. Labour have virtually no support at all above 60. Reform is the only party where all of the polls show that we have broadly even support across every generation, and I think that's really critical if we're going to take the country forward in a way that's fair for everybody.
Well, final quick question. I'm hearing that down the grapevine that you're going to be expanding your core message, not just to focus on the immigration crisis in Britain, but also to talk about the plagues of net zero. Are we going to see more on Reform's policy agenda this year?
We're going to continue to do what we've been doing. Look, 70% of people in the United Kingdom now see immigration as far too high. Nobody has been clearer, more vociferous and firmer about the fact that we need secure borders. It is embarrassing that our border is so porous, and we have hundreds of thousands of people, broadly military-age males, that have come into the country over the last few years illegally. Net migration under the Tories was 1 million last year. They promised it would be tens of thousands. They left office with that number at 1 million a year. But we have consistently talked about how net zero is adding enormously to the bills, the energy bills for British people. If you just look over the last 10 years, the British consumer, people watching at home, £90 billion is how much you have had to subsidise renewables companies. That's £300 per household every year. We've been very clear that this is a travesty. In fact, net zero is one of the greatest heights ever on the British people. Reform will end that and cut your energy bills.
Zia, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I could talk to you all evening, but have a great time. I'm very, very jealous. Very jealous. Anyway, coming up on the show, Vanity Fair claims Meghan Markle's team spoke to publishers about a post-Harry divorce book deal. What is going on? 5 years after leaving the UK, are the Sussexes' future together in doubt? This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Well, if it's some winter sunshine you're after across Europe, it's not all that promising. There's a lot of unsettled weather around. So there's heavy spells of rain across parts of Madeira and Spain and Portugal with this area of low pressure. Another area of low pressure across central Mediterranean, bringing outbreaks of rain, strong winds and even some mountain snow. Best of the sunshine really confined towards Eastern Europe, otherwise staying largely unsettled. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
People living with obesity are people, and they deserve the right for treatment and care as much as anyone else. What we need to understand is that obesity is a chronic condition, or a disease, as some people call it. It's not a choice. And this is the bit that people really struggle with, is that people think this is a lifestyle choice and people have done this to themselves. What we now know is the science and the evidence shows us that this isn't a choice. People have genetic predispositions for living with obesity. What we need to do is be a bit more compassionate and caring to people that live with obesity and support them to make healthier choices, not actually just discriminate and tell them that they're doing something wrong when, you know, if I had asthma, for instance, you wouldn't be saying the same thing to me there. But then it's exactly the same.
Usually, if you're going for an operation of some form or other, there'll be often there is a criteria. So my mother, she had a knee operation. They wanted to make sure her blood pressure was right and all these things. This is, I mean, to hear somebody say that obesity isn't a choice just because you've got genetic predisposition to it, it's just exactly why people seem to be legitimizing being overweight. Ozempic has proved that people are overweight because they eat too much. Because Ozempic tells you to stop eating, it makes you think that you've eaten and makes you feel full, so you don't eat. You may be predisposed to anything, but you also have a large percentage of responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So absolutely, it is in the patient's best interests, because if you're overweight, it'll take you longer to heal. You're more likely to have complications, the same if you smoke, and also the outcomes are usually better. So for a smoker, if you quit, say 4 weeks before surgery, you're 25%, your risk is lower of respiratory complications. So this is literally, of course it's discriminatory, because you have to decide, you have to prioritise the people that are likely to survive the operations.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Meghan Markle was approached about a book deal detailing a potential divorce with Prince Harry. Vanity Fair, these guys, can you see that big spread there? Well, they've claimed that in this bombshell article. The Duchess of Sussex's team allegedly had a conversation with a publishing house to gauge interest in a post-Harry divorce book deal, a claim which her friends immediately, of course, shut down. No surprises there. This comes as staff revealed they need long-term therapy after the very painful experience of working on her 2022 podcast series. Well, amid negative headlines and now 5 years after stepping back from the royal family, are Meghan and Harry's future together? Is it all in doubt? Well, joining me now is royal expert and biographer Ingrid Stewart. Ingrid, thank you so much for talking to me tonight. Listen, this is a bombshell. Meghan Markle's team proposed a divorce book. What's been going on there?
Well, I think it's disguised as a bombshell, but I don't think it really is a bombshell. I think Meghan was, her team was approached with the idea that perhaps she would do a post-divorce book, which of course would be a fantastic deal to seal, but there's no way Meghan is remotely going to discuss anything about post-divorce. But the article says that. Then it goes on to say that the couple are obviously madly in love. So it's a slight contradiction. It's a very long and in-depth Vanity Fair type article, but it does contradict itself in several places.
Yeah, it does indeed.
You agree with me on that, yes.
Yeah, it does indeed. It's a really interesting piece, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously it feels like Vanity Fair don't want to upset Harry and Meghan, but also at the same time are trying to squeeze in some good rumours and stories to keep their audience entertained. But of course we had that other story in there about Meghan's team needing therapy. I mean, we've heard stories about her in the UK back when she was living here and having a bit of a, maybe an attitude problem. I don't know, most allegedly. Where are these rumours coming from? Are these all ex-staff?
I think they're ex-staff. And if you trawl through the cuttings, there's a lot of stories about ex-staff, but none of them are really named because they had the hearing in private when Harry and Meghan left the UK. These bullying stories were held in private. They were never released. But obviously staff were going to speak and say that Meghan was horrid to me. But the fact that they needed therapy afterwards, I mean, as an older English person, find that completely ridiculous. I mean, in my day, people used to scream and shout at you. They might reduce you to tears, but you certainly didn't need therapy.
Well, I think this is a really good point to pick up on because, in defence of Meghan, many would say that this is the job, that when you go and work for these high-profile people, they are going to scream and shout at you. This is kind of what you should expect. Is it just a soft-touch generation, perhaps, maybe a slightly younger group that she's hired that just can't get with the programme?
I think they just can't get with the programme. And I honestly don't think that Meghan can be that difficult to stand up to. She could obviously be very unpleasant. And I think that her staff here really experience that. But I don't believe that the staff at Archwell have had nearly as bad a time as some of the staff did at Kensington Palace. But Meghan blows hot and cold, and I mean, Harry himself said she works at 60 miles an hour. I'd say she works at 90 miles an hour. And she wants everything done now or before she even thought of it. Well, that's quite hard to work for someone like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been a lot of bad news about them recently. They got branded disaster tourists. Has their image been really dilapidated in the American press? So much so that they might even consider coming back to the UK?
Well, I don't think they'll consider coming back to the UK. I think they're very happy where they are. But their image in America is at, I would say, an all-time low. And anything they do gets misconstrued. So they are accused of, helping the people of Los Angeles during the worst moments of the fire by handing out food, by using it as a sort of PR moment for themselves. Yeah. But it's easy to say that. It's very easy to say that. And I think, I was almost tempted to say that. And I thought, no, that's simply not fair because we don't know. And they do have a foundation that is about giving food and things to the less fortunate people of Los Angeles, of which there are a huge number. So, but the thing is, no one really knows what they do. All they know is about the Invictus Games. Okay. No one really knows what Meghan does.
Ingrid, listen, sorry, I'm going to have to step in because we're running out of time, but this has been so insightful. Right, we'll have you back on again soon, I'm sure. Thank you. Coming up next, we'll be getting all those important Sunday front pages from our very own Bev Taylor's joining us live from Washington, D.C. This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands, with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt a lot lighter. I would say if you'd be thinking about entering, just enter.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rubbish it. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer two alternatives, either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, it's 10 p.m. and this is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong. If you're just joining us, Ben is taking a well-earned holiday, but don't worry, he's back in the hot seat next week. And you've got nothing to worry about with me in charge, though. You'll still get upfront and hard-hitting opinions, and nothing is off limits. Still to come on tonight's show. Weren't you promised an end to train strike misery? Well, brace yourselves for another year of train strikes as union bosses look set to reject a 2.8% public sector pay rise. And Bev Turner joins us all the way from Washington as she gives us the inside scoop on Trump's impending inauguration. Also, we'll be going over all of tomorrow's front pages hot off the press with my superstar panel, journalist and comms advisor Linda Jubilee, journalist and writer Peter Lloyd, and author and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Oh, and what on earth do you think this might be?
Ready?
Good, it's about to fall on top of us.
See it. Guys, oh my gosh! What is this?
Taxpayers are being held hostage by off-the-rails unions. Next.
Good evening. The top stories. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel reserves the right to resume fighting terror group Hamas if needed, should further negotiations collapse. The Israeli Prime Minister's office also said tonight they cannot move forward with the ceasefire deal until, quote, we receive the list of hostages to be released. That ceasefire deal is due to start at 8:30 tomorrow morning local time. The Israeli military earlier said it was preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity ahead of the ceasefire deal. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages will be freed, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be amongst the first 33 to leave. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid given. In other news, Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay, according to The Telegraph. Fears over Chinese influence if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius are fueling the delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island. Thousands of people have marched from 3 separate points around Washington, D.C. today ahead of Trump's inauguration. The march is led by several national activist groups, including women's rights groups. The 47th president's inauguration will be the first to be held indoors since Ronald Reagan's in 1985 due to cold weather. Temperatures expected to drop to minus 14 degrees Celsius. The White House says a warning by TikTok it will shut down in the US on Sunday unless tech firms get assurances they'll not be punished for violating a law that bans the app is a stunt. US President-elect Donald Trump said today he would most likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve from the ban. Last April, US President Joe Biden signed a law which gave TikTok a deadline of the 19th of January to separate its US business from parent firm ByteDance. That's a China-based company whose control of TikTok is widely seen as a national security threat by the US government. This week, the US Supreme Court rejected TikTok's appeal and unanimously upheld the law to ban the app. The White House said today actions to implement this law will fall to the next administration. And over a dozen people have been injured in a ski lift accident in Spain. Astun ski resort said around 15 people were injured, 3 of them seriously. The regional government had previously said at least 30 people were injured. State TV channel TVE reported around 80 people remained trapped on that chairlift. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said he was shocked by the news. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Were you not promised an end to train strike misery?
The national strikes that have crippled our country for years. Because I defy anyone to tell me that you can grow the economy when people can't get to work because the transport system is broken.
Yeah, Labour promised their shiny 15% pay deal, a deal brokered by the now sacked Transport Secretary Louise Haigh, would put an end to all of this chaos. No more strikes, no more delays, no more misery. Well, surprise, surprise, that deal wasn't enough for the unions, was it? Despite $135 million in taxpayer-funded pay increases to train drivers, they're still demanding more. And what's on their wish list now? Well, they want a 35-hour work week. I wish. Retirement at 55 years old. And the real kicker, a pay increase above the 2.8% cap already planned for public sector workers in 2025-26. And let's not forget, train drivers already enjoy pay rises far outpacing those of nurses and teachers, the people who save lives and educate our kids. ASLEF union boss Mick Whelan has defended the salaries paid to train drivers, of course, in the UK, which are the highest across Europe at an average of £59,000 annually. He's insisted that his members are low down the food chain compared to executives in the rail industry who earn 6- or 7-figure salaries. All right, well, now think about this. Labour's grand plan for our railways is to bring them into government control, essentially what is called nationalising them over the course of this Parliament. On paper, it might sound better than the system we have today, which I totally agree is broken, by the way. But the more time goes by, it's shaping up to be an extremely costly and dangerous experiment, one that Britain puts its entire rail network and productivity at the mercy of unions. The reality is, you, the taxpayers, me, you, all of us, are footing the bill for the seemingly obvious sweetheart deal between Labour and the unions. It's time to ask, how much more are we willing to pay to keep this train wreck rolling? But let's get the thoughts of my fantastic panel. Joining me this evening, we've got journalist and comms advisor Linda Jubilee, journalist and writer Peter Lloyd, author and academic Dr. Lisa McKenzie. All right, listen. I, once upon a time, would have been in favour of nationalising the railways because we've all been on trains. They're too expensive. They don't run on time. People are getting ripped off every year. They're going up with this cost of inflation. It's getting silly. They're obviously the most expensive fares across Europe sometimes. You can get from, like, Holland to Germany for, like, 30 quid. So is this move going to actually cause Britain to be at the mercy of unions, Linda?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I feel a sense of extreme irritation that there is now going to be more industrial action by the train drivers. I can't actually believe it at all. I'm told that the latest development is that train drivers will strike on a Sunday because they do not want to work extra time. They don't want to work overtime at the same rate. They want, at the highest rate, £600 a day.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
I'm in the wrong job, I think, actually.
Yeah, me too.
I was beginning to think maybe I should retrain. Plus, they want to retire at 55.
Yeah.
Now, women of my generation are told we have to work until we're 67.
Well, this is ridiculous, isn't it?
That's 12 years. I mean, I will have to work for 12 years longer to get to the retirement age, the official retirement age in this country. And they think they're retiring at 55. Yeah. I don't understand what they're doing, which is so physically arduous.
Yeah.
Physically arduous that you have to retire.
And dangerous as well, right, Peter?
But you know what? This is typical Labour. Back in the 70s, this country was held to ransom by the unions, and the Labour government of the day completely compromised our systems. And yet again, it's happening with this latest Labour government. This is particularly insulting when you consider that they've had a 15% pay rise and everybody else is struggling.
I know.
With, you know, the winter fuel allowance being scrapped and tax rises going up. Yep. You think, hang on, so ordinary working people are being punished, and yet these train drivers, who really don't do a very skilled job, are getting more benefits and demanding more?
I'm going to stick up for the unions, actually.
I knew you would.
I'm going to stick up. No, I'm sticking
Someone's
up.
got to do it.
I know, I'm going to stick up for the unions because what this is showing us is that the train drivers and the RMT are a good union. They are good at negotiation. I mean, this sort of 55, it's the thing that they put on the table, don't they?
Yeah.
That's the negotiation part of it. So the RMT and ASLEF are very good at negotiation. They're very good at supporting and representing their members. That's a good thing.
Well, our government is clearly terrible at negotiating. So, so are they just going to roll over like they did last time? There was no extra conditions. To run on time for a better service. I don't think we just got fobbed off.
No, I don't think Starmer would do. I don't think he would do that again. I think they did that straight away because they sort of made this big deal that they were going to sort it out immediately, and they've done that. But those two unions, the RMT and ASLEF, are just really good unions, and they represent their members. That's what a union is for.
Yeah, but I'm sorry,
he's going to push back.
Yes, of course he is. He's not going to, and that's what. And the unions probably expect that. I wish that we'd all got unions that would represent
industrial
us.
action is coming down the track, so to speak, right now.
Yes,
Do you
of
think
course.
that Keir Starmer's going to stop it? Because I don't think he is.
I don't think Keir Starmer's going to. He's not. He's going to push back against them. He's, you know.
So you don't think the industrial action will go ahead?
No, I don't. I think Keir Starmer, there'll be a face-off with him because, you know, one of the things that I always have to laugh on GB News when people say socialist Keir Starmer. He's like the opposite of socialist Keir.
Come off it, Lisa. Come on. He's given away our money. He's got 21 billion invested in a science experiment.
He's an
I mean, this is like
authoritarian.
playing toys with our coffers.
He's an authoritarian neoliberal. That's who he is.
I don't know what's worse.
He's actually. He's not.
Do you know what,
He's
Lisa,
not.
I might give you that one, actually. I quite
He's
like
not a socialist, is he?
Do you know what I say? Bring on the driverless trains. That's what I want. That is what I want.
Automated beer, get it over.
It's like, look, you know, what's that line in London? The one in Canary Wharf. Yeah, the DLR. We've had driverless trains in London for years.
And round. It's not going up and
Can
down
I just
the country.
say, I used to live near a DLR line. They still have people who get on the trains. They still have staff getting on, checking people have paid. I mean, put them at the stations. It doesn't make any sense.
I know.
I mean, this is the problem. Even if we automate them, do you think there's, the socialists will find a way to put people on them and give them a job out of it?
But look, we already have technology such as driverless cars. We have driverless trains.
They're not doing.
We've really got to start capitalising on this technology and updating our infrastructure, because the country is just going to be held to ransom forevermore.
Linda, I mean, look, we just scrapped and maybe are unscrapping HS2, which is, 15 years old? Japan's got bullet trains.
I know.
When the train's 1 minute late, someone bows to you, gives you a note apologising.
I've got a Japanese sister-in-law, and I go to Japan sometimes, and I've worked in Japan as a foreign correspondent, and I've been on the bullet train. I mean, it's
what was that like?
It's like a rocket laid on its side.
It's amazing.
Wow.
It's the most amazing thing, and you can't hear it. It's fast, that it's efficient, it's clean, everyone gets everywhere on time.
And the staff are dressed in beautiful uniforms.
Yeah, but they get a grip. The government there gets a grip.
Yes, but you
when
can't
they've
blame
got a
the
big
unions
project.
for that. You can't blame the unions why we haven't got a bullet train. We haven't got.
No, for sure. That's a government problem.
We haven't got any train. I mean, if you start going north of Watford, we haven't got a train. Where I live, we've got a bus once an hour, Monday to Friday.
All right, Lisa, let me ask you this question. Are you in favour of nationalising the railways?
Yes, I am.
OK, what do you think is going to get better? OK, water, I actually agree with you on that. Well, I think most people would, because it's so vital to humanity.
Well, the trains are vital.
But trains, what do you think will get better under nationalisation that the private companies can't do well today?
Well, what the private companies are doing, the money goes up, doesn't it? The executives take the money, shareholders take the money. Some of our train services are owned by other countries, and so the money goes out of the country. It goes to CEOs.
Like Trenitalia, who run Avanti. Obviously,
Avanti.
an Italian.
If we hand the entire country's railway network to let's nationalise them, let's say we're nationalising them, we're then giving all of the unions powers over our entire rail network.
Right, and
that could lead to complete shutdown one day. They might just all go.
What, as opposed to giving it some CEOs?
Well, listen, I'm not saying I love the current system, by the way. I'm just, devil's advocate. If we do this, what happens?
You would at least get a consistent level of service, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's what we need.
Consistent disruption.
And you know what, we might get some fairness throughout the country, because I think we can all agree that once you get out of London,
I do agree with that.
The public transport is terrible.
It is horrendous. So you think we need to invest more then, Linda?
I would say that we need to take a much firmer grip of projects we intend doing in the future, and we haven't done that. We've let things slide. We've gone over budget. We haven't taken a firm grip on these projects. And that's the Conservative government as well as the Labour government here. And you've got to start understanding that the railways are the arteries of this country. It's so important that we have proper rail links from north to south. And now what have we've got? We've got a titchy little line right in the middle, which isn't connected to Manchester. It isn't properly connected at the moment to central
OK,
London.
this is a good point. Peter, would you be pro-HS2 if we brought it back? I mean, in nationalised hands, clearly, these days, would you be pro-building HS2 with all that money?
No, I think it was a waste, really. And I'm glad that the northern leg of it was cancelled, because I wasn't a fan of it anyway.
It was badly managed.
But it was...
It went
and I think this is my point.
That
is my point. And my point is that everything that the government does seems to end up overspending, a complete disaster, and actually strain on the public. So nationalising them and then giving them power to the unions, that seems like a match made in hell.
I think it's a recipe for disaster. It sounds good, but it's absolutely flawed with pitfalls.
You cannot blame the unions for this.
I'm just saying that you're partnering those two things together. You're giving government control and then the unions who might...
That's just a monopoly. That's a monopoly.
So from the unions that I know with the trains, and I do know some of the sort of higher echelons of those unions, they know more about the trains than actually the managers.
Exactly.
So actually they might be better off.
Well, look, sorry to interrupt, because we're running out of time again, but we're going to be back, so there's plenty more to talk about this. But it's now time for our biggest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could all be yours. Here's all the details you need to win that whopping 50k cash.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck to you all. Coming up, I'll be joined by GB News' very own Bev Turner, live from Washington ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration on Monday. Bev, what have you got for us?
It is a beautiful evening here in Washington, D.C. It is only 6 degrees, but there isn't a breath of wind, and it's hard to believe that the weather is going to get so bad by Monday that all of the action has been taken indoors. I'm going to be telling you what's going to happen. And also, what celebrity did I speak to last night who wants to stand, maybe, as the mayor for London for reform? Don't go anywhere.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big, and lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop. I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP. For example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more a social centre, much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over. But the idea of the shop-centred high street finished, that's gone. Never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Last-minute preparations are taking place in Washington, D.C. ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony on Monday, which has been moved indoors due to predictions of dangerously cold weather. Sounds a bit like Britain at the moment. He will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States in front of an estimated crowd of 220,000 people. Wow. Let's cross live now to GB News' very own Bev Turner, who's in Washington, D.C., soaking up the atmosphere. How's it going over there, Bev? Fill us in. What's happening?
Hi, Alex. Well, it is a strange atmosphere here in Washington, D.C. We are, of course, 5 hours behind you. The sun is just setting. Now, normally on these outside broadcasts, I like to get my cameraman and run around and show you what's happening. But frankly, why would I move this shot? This is a Capitol building behind me. That's where the inauguration will take place on Monday lunchtime. The seats in front would have been filled with dignitaries, very important people. Now, there will only be a couple of hundred of them that will be inside the building. That is obviously disappointing for those hundreds who are here thinking they had a front row seat, and very disappointing actually also for the tens of thousands of people, the general public who will have travelled here by Monday. The city to me still feels quite quiet, I must say, on Saturday evening, but they will have travelled here by Monday. They're all now going to be in the Capitol One building. It's an inside centre. Normally you'd have basketball games, hockey games, etc. would take place in there. So there will be an amazing atmosphere for those members of the public who can get in. It will feel a bit more like a Trump rally as such. But one person who is in town this weekend and frankly is greeted here like he's the Prime Minister of Great Britain is Nigel Farage. And my understanding is that a lot of the British papers tomorrow are going to be speculating about the relationship between the UK and America, and where does Keir Starmer sit in that? I think if you go and ask most people on the street here who Keir Starmer is, they don't actually know. He hasn't made an impact here in America, and Farage is kind of in a perfect position right now, exactly where he'd want to be 4 or 5 years out from the next election.
Yeah, interesting stuff, Bev. I mean, I know Farage had this exclusive party last night, which I believe you were at. But what was the juicy gossip in there? I heard there's some rumours about potential candidates for reform. Go on, give us a little insight.
Well, Nick Candy was there, obviously property developer, a very wealthy man, a very successful man in the UK. He's now backing reform, and he had with him Ant Middleton. We all know Ant Middleton from celebrity SAS, ex-military, motivational speaker, and I asked him about rumours of whether he would stand for London Mayor for the Reform Party.
Well, you'll have to wait and see, but Nick's right about the safety and security. You know, if there's no safety and there's no security, there's no trust. If there's no trust, there's no unity. So we need to knock it right back down to the basics and start off, especially with our capital, by securing the communities and making sure that people can walk around and that they feel safe. The disease that's happening in the capital right now, it's crumbling. It is crumbling, and before long, people are, you know, if we don't get a grip of it, we're running out of time.
So it would be a controversial appointment, of course, Ant Middleton standing as London Mayor, but Reform don't mind a bit of controversy, do they? A little like their friend here, Donald Trump, in America. And it was interesting to hear Ant Middleton talk about that, because I genuinely think there is passion there. He feels very strongly about, as we've heard, about security. And we talked a little bit as well about young men in the UK and the problem with young men committing knife crime. He obviously, from a military background, has come across all sorts of young men who might have lost their way over the years, and has some really interesting perspectives on how he would get rid of crime. So who knows? We're going to have to watch this space, Alex, because he isn't confirming anything as of yet, but I imagine in some areas it'd be quite a popular appointment. Yeah,
I can see that strongman figure, London Mayor, Ant Middleton. I can see it, But the other thing I wanted to ask you, Bev, is that we've seen reports of protests breaking out around Washington, D.C. Lots of clips of the Liberals going a little nuts at Trump's inauguration. Have you seen any of those protests? Are they quite prolific, or are they just a bunch of disturbed people who just want to get their voices heard?
I came down earlier today to look at the protests, and actually it was very uneventful. There were a few thousand people, nowhere near tens of thousands of people. Interestingly, a very white crowd, a very female crowd, lots of sort of middle-aged women feeling very angry about fertility rights and abortion rights. Lots of posters signalling my body, my choice. And in fact, I just bumped into some as I was walking back here earlier, and I said, how do you feel about vaccine mandates? And they said, everybody should take the vaccine, it should be mandated. I went, okay, so your body, your choice, but not if it's about something like that. So I quite like having those conversations here. But they're angry. These people are really angry. But the protest itself, there was no trouble. There are 25,000 police officers and security agents in this city this weekend. As you can imagine, there are so many police cars. You don't walk past a crossroads here in this city without the blue lights flashing pretty much for the last 48 hours. It's been like that, and that will only ramp up. There's 30 miles of fencing which has been erected around the city in order to keep vehicles from being able to hit any locations, if that, or, you know, tragically is what they would intend to do, and also just to keep crowd control. And actually, as I was walking back this afternoon, those barriers are now being taken away. There are concrete barriers, they're picking them up and they're taking them away. So in some respects, these changes for Monday have made the security of this event much easier to police. If you've got a building with everybody inside, you can do x-rays, you can do metal detector tests, etc. I'm sure to some degree the Secret Service have breathed a sigh of relief, because also the walking parade isn't now happening, Alex. They would normally walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, the president and his family, the vice president and his family, and that would be a very vulnerable spot for them to walk along the roads here. So they've changed all of that, but no doubt the energy will still be the same. It's a country divided, quite clearly still is. Trump is such a divisive figure, and he's got to choose on Monday in his opening address how he unites the country. We will all be waiting to see what he talks about, what those first 100 executive orders could be that he signs on Monday. What is he going to do about immigration? Because he also said, remember, that the Russia-Ukraine war would be finished within 24 hours. If he was president. So the clock is going to be ticking. We already see the changes in the Middle East because of what they're describing as the Donald Trump effect. And even the Democrats are crediting Trump with the fact that there is a ceasefire for now, at least, and a hostage release. So I feel like we're on the edge of something really exciting, and you've got to watch it all on GB News on Monday.
I love that. Perfect segue there, Bev. Thank you so much. I'm so jealous, but have a great time. I'm sure we'll hear more from you over the coming days. But coming up, I'll be going through tomorrow's front pages tonight with my fantastic panel. Please don't go anywhere. This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News.
It will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture then, we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern part of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Ben Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News. It's now time to take a look at what's hitting the front pages tomorrow. OK, we're starting with... Oh, hello. Yes, we're starting with the Mail. Team Trump's revenge on Starmer for meddling in the US election. This is saying Mandelson could be vetoed as ambassador. The PM's trip to Washington to be delayed. Aides plot to help Farage get into number 10. Oh, that's going to be a very interesting year. We're going on to the Express. Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. The chaos unleashed by the Chancellor Rachel Reeves will cost Britain the equivalent of 350 police constable salaries or 300,000 nurses, according to a scathing analysis. And then on to the Observer. Fears of chaos in Gaza as families begin trek home after ceasefire. There's also an interesting side piece here. Khan warns of march of fascism as Trump takes power again. I'm going to dig into that one in a second because I think this is very fascinating stuff. The Mirror, they're leading the hospital frontline, the new normal in the NHS. Patients parked head to toe in reception area. Stressed staff saying it's not, they don't want to give in. It's not what they want. OK, and then the Sunday Telegraph. Attorney General in row over Chagos refugees. Starmer legal chief urged to come clean over role in asylum deal for former clients. It just never seems to end, unfortunately, for Keir Starmer, does it? I mean, there always seems to be this allegations of sort of cronyism, alleged cronyism every week. All right, well, let's pick up on this Observer story here, because I think this is interesting. Just a few weeks ago, we saw Labour sort of softening their stance. David Lammy was even out sort of going, Trump's quite...
U-turning, yeah, U-turning.
He was very pleasant with me. Even Sadiq Khan was saying we only have to work with him. But now, this piece here is saying that Khan's... I think he's been right. I haven't had a chance to read the full thing, but Khan is writing about, you know, calling this a march of fascism.
For goodness sake.
This is ridiculous.
Well, this is not changing, though. I mean, you said that they're softening language. They aren't. A week ago, Starmer stood in front of the country again and said, if you want a public inquiry to the grooming gang,
you're far right.
You're far right. So they haven't been softening their language. And Khan coming along with the, you know, there's going to be fascism. Well, I've read many books about fascism. I teach around fascism, and I know that what fascism looks like. And Donald Trump is a democratic leader. He's the leader of the free world. So fascism, that's not how fascism works. So, you know, if Donald Trump in 4 years' time has another election, he's not a fascist.
Exactly.
So this is what this is reactionary and inflammatory, and Sadiq Khan, he needs to stop this, because all he is a divisory
grifter.
But also, you've got to ask yourself, why is he entering into this kind of inflammatory debate when we have got a really hideous knife crime situation on the streets of London? We've got several other profound issues in London that we have to deal with.
Quite.
Why doesn't he talk about those?
Do you know why?
Well, Peter,
because he's not making any progress, that's why.
Well, it's also because he likes to consider himself a world politician.
That's right.
Yeah, he wants to be on the world
stage. Concentrate on London.
Well, OK, so look, listen, he was out not that long ago. I mean, actually, I was talking to Susan Hall yesterday because there was that clip of him.
I like her.
Susan's great, in my opinion. I think she's great. And obviously, she was asking him...
9 times.
Yeah.
Rooney.
Yeah.
She asked 9 times.
He calls this sort of stuff... He's called the definition of grooming gangs inflammatory before. And now he's out saying there's a march of fascism over a democratically elected person, Peter. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, he's such a hypocrite, but he's also really just trying to build up his own profile on the world stage. That's what it is.
Do you know what the other thing as well is? I'm going to say these people do not care about working class children. Yeah. They have no interest in them because young black boys who are dying on the streets of London in pools of their own blood.
He doesn't care about them.
He doesn't care about that. In the same way, I saw a clip of him at City Hall where the Reform candidate, one of the Reform...
Alex Wilson.
was actually saying we need to have, are we going to have an inquiry in London to make sure that, is this happening in London? And he said, Khan said, I wouldn't advise anyone to work with him.
That's right, he did. And I think this sort of language, in general, I mean, especially when we're talking about such a national debate like grooming gangs, you'd think you'd have the decorum and the courtesy.
Or just
probably victims happening in London. We're talking about potential, alleged grooming gangs still happening in London today. You'd think you'd have some mindfulness about what you're saying. But again, when it seems to suit him, my opinion is, when it seems to suit Khan, he's all right to call people fascists.
So we know that there are grooming gangs in London right now. We know there are. And he's saying, what is the definition of a grooming gang?
Obfuscating.
I mean, it's just colossal.
I mean, but also, have these people not learned by now that calling everybody far right isn't a winning strategy?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. How can this still be happening?
Well, most sensible people don't see it that way. But listen, I want to move the story on just a little bit now because there's another big story in the Daily Mail today. Team Trump's revenge on Starmer for meddling in US elections. So they're saying Mandelson could actually be vetoed as ambassador. The PM's trip to Washington could be delayed. And aides are plotting to help Farage into number 10. Lisa, is this a big sign of trouble for Keir Starmer?
No,
surely it is.
I think this is the Mail. This is the Mail. This is the Mail making hay, isn't it? That's what this is. For a start, Nigel Farage cannot be the Prime Minister. But in order for Nigel Farage to be the Prime Minister, he's got to have the largest party. That means he's got to have at least 200 MPs. He's got 5. So
he's polling it the same neck and neck as Labour. One
that's not enough to be Prime Minister.
No, it's not.
Technically impossible for him to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, so it's making menace.
It's never impossible. It's never impossible under the system. He could do it. I mean, you never know. He could do it.
No, he can't.
What if the Tories are going to get destroyed as reformers?
He could after the next general.
Yeah, he could, but
he can't right now.
No.
The point is, why did Keir Starmer send Labour supporters over to support Kamala Harris when there was a likelihood that Donald Trump was going to win the general election?
Do you know what?
It was going to make life very difficult.
Do you know why they did that?
Do you think they're just a little bit out of touch though? Because I mean,
the
press were saying, well, OK, yeah, maybe being a bit generous. They're very out of touch. But like the press were saying, it's neck and neck for so long.
But nobody believed that. Surely,
I thought it was going to be a landslide for Trump. But that's just me. Maybe Keir Starmer was getting bad information.
So let's look at this.
The first time, would it?
So Brexit, they got it wrong about Brexit. They didn't see it coming. They really didn't see it coming. The first Trump, they didn't see it coming. And so what Labour has done, they sent their people in because they thought Kamala Harris was going to win and they thought they would have this great special relationship.
But it's the arrogance of the Westminster bubble, isn't it? It's that typical arrogance of those in, like the London clique.
The North London liberal elite.
Yeah, and it just shows the disconnect.
Technically stop Mandelson becoming... The US could stop Pete
They could
Mandelson.
do that.
They could do, but
I mean, just remember, he was invited. He wanted to go to this party last night. I mean, I don't know why he wanted to go to one of Farage's exclusive parties.
Because it's Peter Mandelson.
Mandy.
Because he likes...
Dark arts, as they used to call it, didn't they? The master of the dark arts. Maybe he's trying to play clever politics.
Mandelson likes power and money. So wherever there's going to be power and money, he's going to be... I mean, he probably will fit in very well.
I would have thought so.
Actually.
All I will say is, whether this story is embellished or not, we're going to have 4 very entertaining years with Trump at the helm. It's going to be the best, the ultimate reality TV show.
I think it's going to be great from day one because I think he's going to get started really good. I've already heard reports he's planning these mass deportations as early as next week.
It's going to be meme-tastic the next 4 years. I'll tell you, it's going to be great.
It's going to be great for... I mean, it's going to be great for us sat here with the popcorn.
The last time he was in, all the press corps completely loved it. It was so entertaining. And then they were really fed up when he was bounced out because
they had Joe Biden not actually doing anything for 4 years. He barely had a press conference and gave them nothing. Anyway. All right, so let's have a look at the royal special here. Linda, you wanted to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I think this is... I think Sophie, Duchess of...
This is on the Mail, the front page of the Mail, by the way, yes.
So a couple of papers, actually, I think. I think that Sophie Wessex looks amazing. It's not just that she looks amazing for 60, but she is one of the hardest working royals. She had an early road bump in her royal career.
Yeah, was that when the audio recordings?
She fell prey to a News of the World scam. And
the shake?
Yeah, the dodgy shake, yeah. But since then, this is someone that unlike Meghan, wants to suddenly have a moment of redemption almost instantaneously. Sophie Wessex has been prepared to work hard over decades at very many projects, and she is behaved with the utmost decorum. And I'm told by very reliable sources that she and the late Queen were incredibly close because the Queen valued her contribution to the firm.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, I just think, these pictures are, they're emblematic of a very hard-working, elegant woman.
It's so nice to see healthy royal family members. I think we take it for granted these days, don't we, with all the illness that's gone in that family. Maybe we should be using people like her a bit more often. But a last story, because this is in the same... we can stick with the Sunday Express for this one, actually. Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. We haven't got long before the break, unfortunately, but isn't this just damning on the way the economy's being run, Lisa?
I think it's not just damning about the economy, it's damning about our social services that people really rely on, that are life and death services. And I think we forget that. I mean, the Mirror's front page is about the new normal in the NHS.
Well, I think that's a great side-by-side comparison. Actually. We can bring up the front page in just a second.
And the new normal...
It's almost like a...
It looks like a third
world country.
Third world country is what I thought when I first
If I was looking at this, I would think that was perhaps the Congo or Bangladesh.
Some sort of...
Or East London, maybe.
but that's the reality, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, isn't this interesting that the Mirror is choosing to run this on their front page? Obviously, the Mirror is very much in the pocket of the Labour Party.
Now, the NHS have started actually advertising for nurses that can work in corridors, actually accepting
that's insane.
That's an almost permanent state of affairs.
Yeah, and the two go side to side. Reeves' budget, the way that the Labour government is understanding how to spend money, and then the chaos that all our public services in. Because today we've talked about transport, and now we're talking about health, and it is crumbling.
And you know what? I think what really winds people up, and I'm not saying that these things can change overnight, but I think the government came in with such a... They were sat on this moral high horse saying, we're going to fix the NHS, we're going to stop the strikes, we're going to fix the economy. I think the expectations they set for themselves, let alone you and us, all of us, the electorate, was so sky high. Now the reality's sinking in that this is super complicated. It might take 4-10 years to fix, if at all, if it can be saved. But look, we're going to wrap it up on there because we've got loads more of today's front pages coming your way. Plus, revealing the incredible events behind the spectacular but scary lights display over the States. This has been Leo Tonight with me, Alex Armstrong, only on GB News. Did I say we...
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun. Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Well, if it's some winter sunshine you're after across Europe, it's not all that promising. There's a lot of unsettled weather around. So there's heavy spells of rain across parts of Madeira and Spain and Portugal with this area of low pressure. Another area of low pressure across central Mediterranean, bringing outbreaks of rain, strong winds and even some mountain snow. Best of the sunshine really confined towards Eastern Europe, otherwise staying largely unsettled. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Estelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This was thought to be a Ruskin. Ruskin was a very considerable polymath, an artist as well as many other things. So, do you know why it was submitted for reappraisal? Was there a bit of a suspicion that it had been misidentified?
No, as you say, it's a service that Christie's offer. You can submit an artwork that you have, so anyone can submit it and request an estimate, and then the auction house's appraisal service allows you space as well to describe it and ask for evaluation. And Christie's sort of looked at it behind the sheet of dirty old glass and recognised a sort of Turner-esque mood and feel and ambience about it. And because there was this close relationship between Ruskin and Turner, which is fascinating, we'll come on to that shortly, but they sort of felt, well, the brushstrokes are very strong, the line is very economic, and the colour of the palette seems to be rather Turner-esque. And then they called in a specialist paper historian who confirmed that actually the paper that was used was one that Turner favoured himself. So yes, it was originally considered to be by Ruskin, but then we discovered something more magnificent. And don't forget what's really interesting. Now it's for sale. The lucky buyer is not just buying a picture. The lucky buyer is buying a life story, a relationship that actually changed the course of art history because of the relationship between Ruskin and Turner themselves.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is Ben Leo tonight with Alex Armstrong, only on GB News. That's me, by the way. I don't know why I didn't refer to myself in the first person. Anyway, it's time to return to our paper review as more front pages have been delivered hot off the press. Let's look at the Sunday Times first. They're leading on this top story here. Third of pupils now get extra time in exams. Figures quadruple in a decade as parents seek help. Private school children more likely to receive support. Interesting. They've also got this side topic here. 2 interesting side topics which we might get into. Harry sociopath podcast pitch. Another one. As Pete, you were saying this to me in the break. Another podcast.
Does the world really want another podcast from these 2 grifters?
We certainly don't need it either. The other one here is something we were talking about a little bit earlier. Is Mandelson at risk from Margot? We'll get into that in a second, but let's have a look at The Sun quickly. They're leading on Gladiator cop probe over woman stalker. This is an exclusive. Police are probing a woman stalking TV gladiator Apollo. Interesting stuff. I don't watch the new series of Gladiator. Do any of you watch it?
No, but I've watched some of the interviews.
I like Gladiator.
Yeah. Well, look. Anyway, I want to just quickly let's talk about this man at risk from Marga, because I think you know, we heard the potential rumours that he was blocked by the outgoing UK ambassador for Russia's party. Do we think Trump would intervene if he wants to show, actually, Keir Starmer, I'm in charge? Peter, what do you think?
Oh yeah. I don't think he's you know, even slightly reticent about, you know, asserting his power, and especially when it comes to someone like Mandy. I mean, I hate to say it, but it couldn't happen to a nicer person, could it? You know.
I don't think he would actually intervene. I don't think we're as important as we think we are.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we think we're more important than we are.
But Trump's pride has been dented, hasn't it, over the last few months? And I tell you who I would love to see him intervene with is David Lammy. I would love to see him get David Lammy fired as Foreign Secretary.
I mean, see it happening. Could you see? I can't see David Lammy being in the same room alone with Trump. Actually, I don't think that'd be allowed.
That would be just disaster.
No, well, apparently.
But the fact is that technically, Trump can turn down Mandelson.
Yeah.
He does have the power to do it.
He does. Yeah. OK, I'm sorry to cut you off because we're squeezing time here, because I want to show you this clip. But the skies above the US were spectacularly lit up this week in scenes we've never seen before here in the UK, at least for now. And the world's richest man, Elon Musk, was apparently responsible. Take a look.
Ready? Good, it's about to fall on top of us.
See it, guys! Oh my gosh! What is this? Are we gonna fucking die? Look up at me, Melissa. Right there, right here.
That coming over your head, it would be terrifying, because obviously you don't know what it is, but this was one of Elon Musk's rockets blowing up after takeoff. I mean, he's had some successes recently, but you know they do tend to go wrong.
Rocket launches often go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's launched 400. Jeff Bezos got one up this week. Elon Musk has launched 400.
First time for everything, eh?
Elon Musk, you know what? He's the greatest Bond villain ever, isn't he?
Oh, I think he's great. Most of the time, I mean, there's some things I disagree with Elon Musk about, but I love the rocket stuff. I mean, that's so cool. Anyway, look, listen, coming up next, it's Headliners, presented tonight by Leo Kurtz. Leo, what do you have coming up on the show for us?
Oh, we've got a cracking show tonight, Alex. We've got Nick Dixon and Steve N. Allen, two Headliners OGs behind the desk, and we're going to be talking about some crazy stories. So Donald Trump is coming to power in a couple of days, and remember, Labour sent 100 staffers over to help Kamala get elected. It didn't work, but Donald Trump is going to take revenge on Labour and try and get Farage elected as the next Prime Minister. We've also got a man who complained about racism because he was wearing a fez and people called him Tommy Cooper. He didn't win that case. You'll be happy to hear. And we've got the return of ISIS.
Wow, that sounds like a big show you got going on there, Leo. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing you there for that. Please stay tuned, everybody. Thank you to my fantastic panel tonight. Next up, of course, it's Headliners. I'll be back tomorrow with another banging episode, so please stay tuned tomorrow night, and we'll see you at 9 o'clock, and enjoy Headliners. Take care.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now, to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. £50,000 in tax-free cash. How would you react if you won?
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Amazing. Just the best feeling ever.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at